It took me 4 years, but I finally sat down and watched Halloween Trilogy, starting with 2018's Halloween. This is one that when it came out, I wanted to see. I just had other things going on in my life during that particular point in time, and I just weren't watching that many movies, and horror movies especially just weren't really high on my list. Besides, I'd heard, moderate things about this particular one. Some people thought it was really good, some people thought it was really bad, and they thought that it was just a rehash of the original or a rehash of any of the other sequels that we've already seen. But when I learned that it was going to be the first part of a trilogy, I figured, you know what? I'll just wait, right? I'll just wait. I don't really feel like I'm in a rush to watch Halloween, and that's okay. I'll finally bide my time until all of them are coming out, and I can sit down and actually enjoy them in very quick succession. And that's what I did. The other night I started watching Halloween, and here's my quick thoughts on it. So the movie picks up, obviously, like 40 years after the events of the last one, and we get basically a general retelling of the original movie, or I should say the original trope of what Halloween is. Michael Myers is in an insane asylum. They're going to transfer him to another place. He ends up breaking out, and he just goes on this massive killing spree throughout Haddonfield, and it's just, okay, more of the same. Right? All the while, Laurie Strode has locked herself away in her home for the last 40 years, paranoid beyond all hell that Michael will one day return and that she will have to face him and finally end him. And that's what she believes her life's plan is. And then she has to put that on her daughter, Karen. And ultimately that led to her daughter splintering away from her and not wanting anything to do with her, which still somewhat transferred on to Laurie's granddaughter, Allison, who does play, I would argue, like, the second lead in the movie, right? It was very much Laurie's story and very much Allison's story. And that had a lot to do with the fact that Allison was also only 17 at the time when this thing was taking place. She was an honor student. She was a grade A kid. People out there thought that she was going to have really good things happen for her. And, she really just wanted to connect with her grandmother, even though her mother wanted nothing to do with that. So as the story begins to unfold, Michael just starts slaying his way through Haddonfield, and for the most part, it's just kind of like vignette after vignette after vignette. He walks into a home, stabby, 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 kills a person, moves on, and then as the rest of the story begins to unfold, it's the authorities coming to realize that Michael is back and that he is clearly doing something. They think he's tracking down Laurie Strode. Laurie Strode thinks that he's tracking her down. We as the audience are meant to think that he is coming for Laurie. It turns out that's actually not the case at all. He's not, but his therapist is the one who wants to see that encounter, because the new Loomis has spent all of these years becoming 100% obsessed with Michael Myers because he doesn't speak. There's no motivation that this doctor can ascertain, and he wants to see Michael Myers in action, going as far as to even almost killing, Sheriff Hawkins in order to make sure that Michael Myers can, continue on his rampage after he gets, hit by a car and things like that. That particular twist with the doctor, I did see coming. I actually was like, okay, something is going to be different this time around. Obviously, the doctor survived the encounter on the bus. None of the other guards did. The 13-year-old, the kid with the hunting rifle even got killed, but the doctor seemed to live even though he was shot. Obviously, this guy is behind it. It just seems to make the most amount of sense given that type of trope. And as we come to find out, yeah, that's 100% accurate. He wanted Michael to kill. He wanted to observe it. Now, I don't know if he wanted Michael to kill in order to to revel in the chaos, or if he just wanted to watch Michael work as a third party observer because he was so enamored with the concept of just that sheer brutality and the stoicness that is Michael Myers. And that mythos really kept itself going throughout the movie. I would argue probably the worst part of the film were the podcasters coming out of Britain that were somehow able to get their hands on the Michael Myers mask, and then they taunted him with it. But that does somewhat run parallel with what Laurie was doing by setting her house as a series of traps and trying to make sure that Michael would come to her so then she could be the one to end it. There are parallels with the different storylines in this movie that kind of start leading towards what happens later on in the trilogy, which I'll get to in the other videos. But I will say that I enjoyed the finale of the movie a lot. I liked that Michael just started, again, as he's being put on the path to Laurie, it wasn't by his own design, it was somebody else's design. But then once everybody else got in his way, they're all dead and the brutality is just there. One of the things I found to be probably the most interesting was the fact that like they all go back to Laurie's house, right? It was Karen, her husband, and Laurie. The husband, kind of an idiot, right? Good meaning, well-intentioned guy, but he goes out there thinking he sees the cops and he ends up getting killed and then drugged back in the house and shoved into a closet. Okay, fine. You know, and then Laurie finds him, but doesn't really say much like to Karen about it. And Karen, all things considered, didn't even really seem to care that much in the moment. You know, I don't know if that was like if that was just like a learned trait from Laurie where she can shut herself off and she can focus on what's going on. Like she's like, okay, my husband's dead. I can't worry about that right now. I've got to think of how I can get through this. And you wouldn't think that at first because her reaction when Laurie is kind of knocked down and Michael is coming towards the underground room and he starts tearing off the door and she's got the gun and she fires a shot. Or no, she's got the gun and she's whimpering for her mom. We can't do this. We can't do this. Even Allison thinks that they're basically dead. And then as soon as Michael shows his face, she's like, gotcha. So she completely becomes what Laurie had taught her in that moment. Fires off a shot, shoots him, doesn't kill him, just wounds him. And then from there, they're able to get him into the safe room, seal it off, burn the house down, movie ends. Great first film in that particular regard. Some of the problems I had with some of the characters, like I should say the vignettes and whatever, but ultimately it was very straightforward, very direct, and had a satisfying ending. I really liked it. Let me just quickly point out, though, that throughout all three of these movies, the cinematography, the directing, and the music were top-notch, and that is something that regardless of how you feel of the subsequent entries into this franchise, that is still like top tier in my mind. And so, yes, when it comes to Halloween 2018, I wholeheartedly recommend it. And it made me really excited to watch Halloween Kills and especially Halloween Ends. So stay tuned for my Halloween Kills review coming up right now.